Margaret of Denmark, the woman who united Scandinavia. The throne is empty, not because no one wants it, because too many people do. Across the kingdoms of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, nobles sharpen ambitions instead of swords. Kings die. Princes compete. Families betray one another. The crowns of the north seem destined to remain divided forever. Then history produces someone almost no one expects. Not the strongest warrior, not the richest ruler, not even a king, a woman. Her name is Margaret I of Denmark, and before her story ends, she will accomplish something no Scandinavian ruler had ever achieved. She will unite the north. You can almost feel the cold wind sweeping across the Baltic Sea, long winters, dark forests, rocky coastlines where trading ships fight icy waves. This is a world built on strength, a world where kingdoms survive only through careful alliances and ruthless decisions. Margaret enters it in 1353. She is born the youngest daughter of Valdemar IV of Denmark. Her father has spent much of his reign rebuilding Denmark after years of disaster. He teaches Margaret something many princes never learn. Power is not simply won on the battlefield. It is negotiated, protected, patiently constructed. As a child, Margaret watches diplomats as closely as knights. She studies conversations more carefully than tournaments. While others admire swords, Margaret notices the hands that decide when those swords are drawn. Even then, she is learning the real game: politics. At only 10 years old, her future changes. She is married to Håkon VI of Norway. Today it sounds impossibly young. In medieval Europe, it is politics. Royal children are rarely allowed ordinary childhoods. Every marriage reshapes kingdoms. Every wedding becomes a treaty. Margaret leaves Denmark. She enters Norway not simply as a bride, but as a bridge between two crowns. Years pass. She grows into adulthood, learns court politics, earns respect quietly, without demanding it. Then a son is born, Olaf II of Denmark. To most people, he is simply a prince. To Margaret, he is the future of two kingdoms. Everything appears secure until fate intervenes. Her husband dies. Suddenly, Margaret is a widow, still young, still surrounded by ambitious nobles. Many assume her influence will disappear. History has a habit of underestimating women at exactly the wrong moment. Because Margaret does not retreat, she steps forward. Her young son inherits Norway, soon afterward Denmark as well. But Olaf is still a child. Someone must govern. That someone becomes Margaret. Officially, she rules as regent. Unofficially, she is already proving herself the strongest political mind in Scandinavia. You can almost see the council chambers, bearded nobles expecting to guide the young widow. Instead, they discover they are negotiating with someone far sharper than they imagined. Margaret listens more than she speaks. She studies every alliance, every rivalry, every weakness. And slowly, very slowly, power begins flowing toward her. Not because she demands it, because she earns it. Then tragedy strikes again. Her son Olaf dies unexpectedly. He is only 17. For many rulers, this would be the end. No husband, no surviving child, no obvious heir. The kingdoms should collapse into chaos. The nobles prepare for another struggle over the crowns. But they underestimate Margaret one more time. Because instead of losing everything, she begins building something no one believes possible. One crown is difficult enough. Margaret intends to unite 3. And before Europe realizes what she is doing, the Queen of Denmark will quietly become the most powerful ruler the North has ever known. Right as Margaret turns personal tragedy into political opportunity. Because next, she will outmaneuver kings, outwit nobles, and forge a union that will change Scandinavian history for more than a century. The nobles think they have won. That is their first mistake. When Olaf II of Denmark dies without an heir, the kingdoms should fall apart. That is how medieval Europe usually works. A king dies, power fractures, ambitious men rush forward, civil war follows. The crowns of Denmark and Norway seem ready to drift apart once again. The great families sharpen their ambitions. Every noble believes this is finally his opportunity. But they forget one thing. Margaret I of Denmark is still alive, and Margaret has absolutely no intention of surrendering everything she has built. You can almost picture the council chamber, long wooden tables, heavy tapestries, nobles arguing over succession, each convinced he is the cleverest man in the room. Meanwhile, Margaret says very little. She simply listens. That becomes one of her greatest strengths. She rarely raises her voice. She rarely threatens. She waits. She studies. And then, when everyone else has exhausted themselves, she moves. Instead of claiming every throne for herself, Margaret does something brilliant. She adopts her young grandnephew. His name is Eric of Pomerania. He is only a boy. To many nobles, that makes him perfect. Young kings are easy to control, or so they believe. What they fail to understand is that Eric may wear the crown, but Margaret will hold the power. The arrangement is almost elegant. The kingdoms receive a king. Margaret remains the true ruler behind him. It is politics at its finest. You can almost admire the simplicity. No battlefield, no massacre, just careful planning. One agreement after another. One alliance after another. Soon, Denmark accepts Eric, then Norway. Only one great kingdom remains, Sweden. Sweden has never been easy to govern. Its nobles guard their independence fiercely. Many resent Danish influence. Others simply resent being told what to do. Margaret understands this immediately. She does not march north with overwhelming armies. She begins with diplomacy, promises, negotiations, carefully chosen allies. But diplomacy only works until someone refuses. Eventually, resistance hardens. Several Swedish nobles challenge her authority. Margaret responds. Not recklessly, decisively. Her supporters advance. Fortresses change hands. Loyalists gain ground. Opposition slowly begins collapsing. The remarkable thing is that Margaret never gains a reputation for needless cruelty. Firm? Absolutely. Relentless? Without question. But she understands something many rulers never do. Victory is only useful if people are willing to live under it afterward. That lesson separates conquerors from nation builders. And Margaret is building something. Not merely winning, building. By the late 1380s, Sweden recognizes her authority. Think about what has just happened. One woman now controls Denmark, Norway, Sweden. 3 crowns, 3 kingdoms, 3 peoples with centuries of rivalry. No Scandinavian ruler has accomplished this before, yet Margaret is not finished. Because ruling 3 kingdoms separately is one thing. Uniting them forever is something else entirely. To accomplish that, she will call one of the most important meetings in Northern European history, a gathering inside the Swedish town of Kalmar. There, kings, bishops, nobles, and diplomats will witness something extraordinary. 3 kingdoms, 1 crown, 1 union, and 1 woman standing quietly behind it all. The queen who never needed to wear every crown, because she had already mastered the art of holding them together. The year is 1397. The air inside the castle at Kalmar feels heavy with expectation. Nobles arrive from every corner of the north. Danish lords, Norwegian bishops, Swedish aristocrats. Each carries hopes, each carries doubts, and many carry hidden ambitions. You can almost hear the echoes of boots across the stone floors. This is not merely another royal gathering. History is about to change. At the center of it all stands Margaret I of Denmark. Not wearing every crown herself, she doesn't need to. That is the remarkable thing about Margaret. She understands something many rulers never learn. Real power does not always sit on the throne. Sometimes, it stands quietly beside it. Her adopted son, Eric of Pomerania, is crowned King of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. The ceremony is magnificent. Golden crowns, silk banners, priests chanting beneath vaulted ceilings, candles reflecting from polished armor. To the watching crowd, Eric appears to be the ruler. but nearly everyone inside the hall understands the truth. Margaret remains the architect, the steady hand guiding everything. The agreement signed that year becomes known as the Kalmar Union. 3 kingdoms, 1 monarch, a single alliance stretching across Scandinavia. For the first time in history, nearly the entire Nordic world stands united. Think about the scale of it, from the icy mountains of Norway to the forests of Sweden to the fertile fields of Denmark. One political union now binds them together. Merchants celebrate, trade becomes easier, foreign powers begin looking north with new respect. The kingdoms that once competed against one another now possess a united voice. Margaret has accomplished what armies failed to achieve, not through endless conquest, through patience, negotiation, persistence, and remarkable political instinct. You can almost imagine ambassadors arriving from across Europe, England, the Holy Roman Empire, the kingdoms of France and Poland, each recognizing that the balance of power in Northern Europe has shifted. Margaret's reputation spreads far beyond Scandinavia. She becomes known as one of the finest rulers of her generation, not merely because she united kingdoms, because she kept them functioning. That proves far more difficult. Any ruler can win territory. Holding different peoples together, that is the real challenge. Margaret governs carefully. She limits the power of rebellious nobles, strengthens royal authority, protects trade across the Baltic, repairs finances damaged by years of conflict. Again and again, she chooses stability over glory. There are no reckless campaigns for distant lands, no desperate attempts to build an empire. Instead, she builds institutions, order, confidence. The people begin experiencing something unusual: peace. Not perfect peace. History never grants that luxury. But longer periods without civil war, safer roads, growing commerce. For ordinary families, those changes matter far more than grand victories. Margaret understands that better than most monarchs ever will. She never allows success to make her careless. Every alliance requires maintenance. Every kingdom demands attention. Every noble watches for weakness. Yet year after year, Margaret remains one step ahead. It becomes increasingly difficult to separate the crowns from the woman holding them together. Without Margaret, would the union survive? Many quietly begin asking themselves that question. The answer arrives sooner than anyone expects. In 1412, while traveling near the port of Flensburg, Margaret suddenly falls ill. The queen who united Scandinavia, the woman who outmaneuvered kings, the architect of the North, dies at 59 years old. The silence that follows feels enormous, because everyone understands what has been lost. Not simply a queen, a strategist, a diplomat, a builder of nations. Eric inherits the union. But history quickly reveals an uncomfortable truth. Keeping 3 kingdoms united proves much harder without Margaret guiding them. The Kalmar Union survives for generations, yet the cracks begin appearing. Disagreements grow, old rivalries return. Eventually, the union itself will fracture. But Margaret's achievement remains untouched. She proved that kingdoms divided by history could be brought together. She proved that diplomacy could accomplish what warfare often could not. And perhaps most importantly, she proved that one determined woman could reshape the political map of an entire region. Today, across Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, her name still carries respect. Not because she conquered the North, because she united it. So we leave Margaret here, standing in the great hall at Kalmar, 3 crowns before her, kings, bishops, and nobles watching. The future of Scandinavia balanced on a single decision, and the woman everyone once underestimated, quietly accomplishing the impossible. If this story stayed with you, if you admired the patience, intelligence, and determination required to unite rival kingdoms, don't stop here. There are more women like Margaret, women who changed history, not through louder voices, but through wiser decisions. Women who built lasting legacies while others chased temporary victories. Stay dangerous, stay loud, and never let them hold the pen.